Hey, it's Hans from Dakota Angler and Outfitter in Rapid City, South Dakota, and today we're going to tie an upright Callibaetis spinner. It's kind of a version of a Bob Brooks pattern that we buy from Solitude Flies. I've got a dry fly hook here in the vise, size 16. Also tie this in a 14, but this is a Callibaetis colored version, which works really well on our lakes here in the Black Hills. But you could adapt this to basically any mayfly hatch. Got some fine thread here. This is size 16/0. Black thread. You could also use a gray here. And first thing I'll do is I'll take some flora fiber in white and make a post, parachute post. Tie in a bundle of that, about quarter of the hook shank back from the eye. Get that down with a couple of wraps. Trim it back at an angle. Wrap over those. We'll just grab everything, pull it up, get some wraps in front. And then we want to make our post by wrapping around the base of those fibers with our thread. There we go. And we'll wrap back to the back of the hook, just so our thread's about even with the barb. And I'm going to tie in some barred mayfly tails from Hareline Dubbin. And I'm going to take and tie in 4 of these tails. I want to even them up, and then I'm going to measure them so they're about the length of the hook shank. Tie that in to length. There we go. Tie those up towards the back end of the post, and then trim off the excess. Then I'll wrap back, and I'll just kind of force my fingernail underneath them. Until I can see the individual fibers. What I want to do is get 2 on each side here. There we go. We'll just do a quick figure 8 wrap to get those guys nice and splayed out, and then sneak in behind them. There we go. Now I'm going to do the body of this fly with these synthetic quills from Hareline. This is the gray version. And I'm going to lay that along the abdomen and tie that in right at the base of the tails. Sneak that underneath there. There we go. Wrap that forward. So now I can wrap this synthetic quill and kind of overlap each of those just slightly. I just want to sneak in one more wrap here. There we go. Just up kind of towards the back end of the post. I'll take and trim out the excess. And before I continue, I'm going to take some UV Cure resin. I've got the Loon here, just trying it out. I used a lot of the Clear Cure goo. Oops. Clean out the tip of that guy a little bit. We'll just put a little dollop of that over those quills. Make sure you get it all the way around. You don't need much. And then we'll take the UV light and cure that. That just protects those synthetic quills so that they don't unravel on you. Makes it more durable. Hit that with the UV lamp. Also gives it kind of a nice sheen. You can really see that jump out at you now, the segmentation that those create. It looks really cool. Next we'll take a dun hackle. Tie that in right at the base of the post with a couple of wraps. Once that's kind of locked in, we're going to actually attach it to the post by a few thread wraps. And now, you can use a lot of different dubbings here for the thorax. I'm going to try some UV tan. Kind of a cool Callibaetis-y color. Build up a little thorax here. Working around in front and back of that post. And just end up right up on the post with a couple wraps of thread. So we're basically at the point now where we can start making some turns with our hackle. Excuse my fingers in front of the camera there, but I'm just working the hackle down the post, and a one turn under the previous, or each turn under the previous wrap. And then once you get it full enough for your liking, I got 4 or 5 wraps on here. I'm gonna wrap underneath the hackle with my thread, kind of tie that off, and I'll trim off the excess hackle. You got a couple of options for how you can whip finish this, but I prefer to actually whip finish around the base of the post. And if you've got a whip finisher, you can do this pretty easily with your rotating whip finisher. Mine's buried on my bench here, so I'm just going to use my hands. But what you're going to do is form your whip finish, and you're going to go underneath your hackle with your turns of your whip finish. And you want about, or at least 3 turns. Try not to capture any of those wraps. You can also, when you're whip finishing underneath your, or on your post, actually drop your vise so that your hook is, I'm not going to drop my vise because I'll lose the frame here, but you can drop, I guess you could even adjust your hook and your vise too, but drop it like this, and then you're able to whip finish around the base of that post much easier. But I snuck one in there in between in the short gap between the lens and the hook there. And then we'll trim off our excess thread. Kind of make sure that we didn't trap any hackle wraps there. And then to finish the fly, we'll trim off that post. Have a bit of an angle down, so starting at the front, trim an angle down, and there you have an upright spinner or a parachute. This fly for a Callibaetis works really well here in the Black Hills. On all of our lakes, you tie this in an olive version or a pale yellow version for PMD or blueing olive, and have a very effective pattern. But it's really cool, that synthetic quill just gives it that nice segmentation, kind of more lifelike look to your pattern. So give those a try, mess around with them. I'm Hans from Dakota Angler and Outfitter, and we just finished tying a version of Bob Brooks' upright Callibaetis spinner. One thing I didn't do is I didn't model the wing on his Callibaetis. Before you trim it, you can model it with a black Sharpie to kind of give it that variegated look, or kind of speckled look of a Callibaetis spinner, or a Callibaetis wing rather. And yeah, so you can play around with that on your pattern. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for more videos.